underestimating a civilization will leave you in the precarious position of having to postulate a theory that disguises your malintentions against that civilization. But overestimating a civilization will leave you in a even worse situation where you come across as extremely goofy and no one cares about what you're talking about. Which takes me to the Gosford glyphs. These glyphs are in Australia, in the far side of Australia, and they're claimed to be ancient Egyptian writing from 4,600 years ago, which would put it in the 2000 BC region. All of this is a claim that is supported by some people who say that the ancient Egyptians traversed the Indian Ocean, which is true that at one point they did, but it's not true the way that these guys put it, where the ancient Egyptians then got shipwrecked in Australia. One of two things has to be first shown before I show the glyphs themselves, is that being shipwrecked, usually you get shipwrecked on the side that faces where you came from. So them traveling in the Indian Ocean and getting shipwrecked on the wrong side of Australia is already a big X for me. But if you look at the glyphs themselves, you can tell that the person who made these glyphs was only vaguely aware of what they should look like or had extremely horrible handwriting. Now, I can't talk, my handwriting isn't beautiful, but this person could have taken more time if he wanted to fake this. The fact that they were only found in the 70s and people had been in this area multiple times and state that they'd never even seen anything like this before tells you that these are just fakes. Now, there are people in this world who obviously take them as real. The people who take them as real are obvious. It's the people from Ancient Aliens. And why wouldn't they? These glyphs are in good company. Hoax after hoax. This is why I don't want to do the jumping to Africans invented Japan or any of that other stuff. Because if you go too far, there's no way of taking stuff like that back without seeming like a super bad faith person. At one point, I actually had sympathy for the idea of a lost civilization from the Ice Age and all these other things, but now it's starting to seem like that too was, over guessing by people who had a thought or had a want to make certain civilizations exist before they did. And if you think of the reasoning behind it, it gets a little sketchier and sketchier, as a lot of those theories involve blonde men traveling around the world, giving everyone a civilization. Sort of tells you which side they're on. The only reason I had sympathy for it was because I never really looked into it. But when I watched the Joe Rogan video with Flint Gibble, I think that's his name, it completely made me roll the other side. The only reason why I rolled the other side was because the person, first of all, I feel like they took back a lot of the ideas they said that they represented, but worse than that was that they didn't have any real pushback for any of their views. These glyphs are even worse than that, which is they can't be defended. Like I said, they're on the wrong side of the ocean for someone who got shipwrecked. Now, if it was someone if they did it on purpose, if they got there on purpose, those glyphs would not look that stupid.
Well, this is your own article, Flint. Here you are. I'm quoting from, that's a quote from your article published in The Conversation. This sort of race science is outdated and long since debunked, especially given the strong links between Atlantis and Aryans proposed by several Nazi archaeologists. You are associating me with this, and you are attempting to get me
I'm asking you to
effectively.
distance yourself from that is actually what I'm trying to do.
But that's not what you're doing, though. You're associating him with that, clearly.
I don't think so. I do not
you don't
see this
think
as propaganda.
that? Look at the way it's phrased on your article. This sort of race science is outdated and long since debunked, especially given the strong links between Atlantis and Aryans proposed by several Nazi archaeologists. That's like a part of the headline.
So you want me to show you some tweets I've gotten from people that are fans of Graham Hancock
No. Listen, stop. Don't do that. They're not connected to him. They're just humans. There's a lot of crazy people in the world. This is you. We're talking about you.
Yes, but what I'm trying to say is that people misinterpret Graham. There's lots of people on the internet that think that he's talking about a lost white civilization.
Right, but this is something that you chose to highlight at the top of the page.
No, I did not highlight that at the top of the page.
Why is that like that?
He did that. That's actually near the end of it.
That's a quote from the article.
That's near the end of it.
But why is it up there like that?
I put it there.
You did it. Oh,
yeah,
Jesus.
I did not put that there
I'm
like
just
that.
I'm just taking an extract from Flint's article.
Okay, but you did print it. You did print that this sort of race science is outdated and long since debunked. What were you referring to when you said that, if you weren't referring to Graham?
I was referring to his take on the Olmec heads, where he described them as from an African culture. And he specifically took that from Ignatius Donnelly, who also described them that way, almost in the exact same words based on their facial appearances, despite the fact that Ann Cyphers has done excavation there and demonstrated with DNA and artifacts that these were indigenous people from that area in Mexico. And so that was an older essay that Graham has written, and that was what that quote was specifically relevant to.
But how does it reinforce white supremacist ideas that they were seafaring Africans?
Well, because again, it strips credit away from the people who actually did that.
Right, but that doesn't reinforce white supremacy. It reinforces, look, if anything, he's trying to say that it was black people from Africa that were able to seafare and create these structures.
Some pretty silly stereotypes is what I say.
What do you mean about facial features?
Yeah.
But there's many people that have made those connections. Looking at those, they look Polynesian,
and
perhaps.
Yet the people that have excavated it and done the DNA right at that site at San Lorenzo have shown that none of those people had African descent.
Right, but what are those structures representative of? Are they the people that were there?
Of course.
But is it possible
that
those
we have no evidence
are,
of African people in the
Right, we don't
Americas.
have any evidence of it, but we do have the actual structure of those faces, and they do. I mean, be honest. They look either Polynesian
I can bring up some.
They look fascinating.
Excuse me.
They're
I can bring up